Hey everybody, today I am going to be closing out the Star Wars trilogy. I am reviewing Return of the Jedi. This was directed by Richard Marquand. I don't know, after watching The Empire Strikes Back, that really knocked my socks off in a way that I wasn't expecting, and I admit I wasn't really looking forward to revisiting this one just because it's my least favorite of the three, of the original trilogy. I don't think I'm in the minority on that, but I often do run into people who actually do find this to be their favorite, so I really don't know. I think just overall when I look at this movie, there's something about it where I feel like, and this is going to seem maybe a little bit dramatic, but it's almost like it's kind of scratching the surface of the beginning of the end. Like it's kind of the beginning, the very, very beginning of the slow and painful downward spiral that would be the Star Wars legacy as far as I see it. And perhaps that is a little bit cynical, but I don't know, that's just how I see it. I'm not saying that this is a terrible movie. It's not. I didn't hate it at all. In fact, I think there are elements that are entertaining and satisfying about it, but I do think absolutely in the context of the whole trilogy, especially with The Empire Strikes Back as the previous film, this to me felt like a major step backwards. And it's weird because when I think about trilogies, rarely is the third film in a trilogy my favorite one. And you know, I think there's all kinds of different reasons why. I think maybe because it's so conclusive, and so like there's a lot less conflict, there's a lot more loose end tying, and I suppose that's how it should be. The first film is introducing everything, the second film is full of the tension of everything, and then the third one is kind of the release of that tension. And third films I think of as like the big fanfare, the fireworks, and when I look at this film, I think it tried to end with a bang, but I don't know if it really did. I think it could have been a really dramatic and thrilling conclusion, similarly to the first two films, but it felt more designed to garner merchandise. But alas, I think the innocence is kind of gone by this point. The Star Wars that I know and love, that I consider to be a very unique and rebellious experiment, initially for the time, it's starting to feel more like a commodity, an industry, now more than ever. And you know, that's fine to a degree, but I don't know, it would only grow from there, and I guess I find less to admire from an emotional standpoint. There is definitely a lot of laziness in the writing to me. There is a lack of boldness, and it doesn't really feel like a statement. It doesn't feel like the conclusion to a type of trilogy that is like this. It just kind of tapers off tonally and just as an experience as a whole. And I think there is a lack of world building and creativity compared to the previous films. This one is just going more for the type of tone that is light and family oriented, and it's more trying to pander to the child demographic for the Happy Meals and such. And I think a lot of the tension that we felt from the first two films just doesn't really carry through here. These characters, you know, they love to bicker, they love to annoy each other. There's a lot of sexual tension and a lot of chaos going on there, but in this film, it feels like they were all sedated by like happy pills or something, where they're all just kind of very boring and everybody loves each other, everybody gets along, and I don't know, like it's stuff like that is not quite gelling with me. And maybe the intent was more genuine initially. I really don't know, but just looking at the type of people that George Lucas wanted for the film, it gives me hope that maybe there was an idea to go a little bit more dramatic, because I know that he wanted Spielberg initially to direct it, and obviously that didn't work out due to, like, you know, studio issues, and then he considered people like David Cronenberg, David Lynch, and of course, David Lynch had zero interest, as he said, next to zero interest. There is a really famous video of David Lynch talking about how George Lucas approached him to direct Return of the Jedi. Please watch it if you haven't. It is fantastic. It's on YouTube. But yeah, eventually he did go with Richard Marquand, who was, you know, maybe less experienced, but not to knock the man. I think he is talented. I just don't think that, at least for me, I don't know if I would have picked him to make a movie like this. He did once say in an interview that he felt that Kirshner's Empire Strikes Back was a little bit excessive visually, and I was kind of thinking, bruh, I saw Return of the Jedi. Comparatively, it looks like a made-for-TV movie. I mean, it doesn't look like one, but compared to The Empire Strikes Back, which is so huge and amazing, it's such a spectacle, this one just felt, you know, kind of underwhelming. The same kind of flow of the storytelling, the same kind of sophistication of the tension building, the dynamic quality of just everything and the world building is just not here. I think it's nice to have a positive outlook and make a film that's more family oriented, and I think that can absolutely work, but at the same time, it's like we're avoiding taking creative risks, which I think is very counterintuitive to the whole idea behind Star Wars. There were talks, I think, of wanting to make this film a little bit darker initially, or maybe raising the stakes a little bit more. I know that Harrison Ford really pushed for Han Solo to die in this one, if he must return for the final film. He just felt like, you know, the character's done all he can. It would be interesting for him to die. And I do think for the third film that would have been dramatic and surprising and maybe fitting for a final face-off against the Empire, you know, to have that final emotional motivation there. But no, they kept him in. As Harrison Ford says, it's because Han Solo doesn't sell very well if he's dead, you know, as a toy or whatever. But clearly they had no idea what to do with him. And they really didn't know what to do with Lando either. They didn't know what to do with Princess Leia. They didn't really know what to do with anybody except for Luke Skywalker, it feels like. And I do look at this entire film, and it does feel overall just very strangely paced when you have like the rebels and they're asking for allies in the form of like these lost boys from Neverland. And of course, I'm meaning the Ewoks, each sold separately, batteries not included. And suddenly we're beating like this huge intergalactic empire with like arts and crafts projects. And I don't know. When I was a kid, though, I have to say, when I was a kid, I loved this film. I absolutely loved the Ewoks. I thought they were just so cute, and I thought they were hilarious. So from a kid's perspective, obviously this was very effective, so I can't knock it too much. But just as an adult, it doesn't translate very well to me. They're not the worst thing by any means, but I don't know. Like, again, I just felt like an odd tone when we consider what was going on in Empire Strikes Back, where things felt just a lot more pressing. But yes, when I talk about the stakes, that just feels very awkward. Like there's just a lot of lollygagging towards the final battle, and there just feels like less intent. It's kind of aimless. Even the opening of this film just feels a little bit weird and a little bit like, okay, we're taking a big departure here, because after just the intensity of that climax in The Empire Strikes Back, and knowing, you know, our rebels are down in this way, suddenly they're like, come on guys, the rebellion against the Empire can wait. We gotta go save Han Solo, which, you know, just feels a little bit silly, and the stakes naturally here are already quite flimsy. Now, not to say that I don't like the Jabba the Hutt stuff. I actually really love it. That's some of my favorite stuff in the entire movie. I think it's where some of the best creativity is, certainly. I just love Jabba the Hutt. I love the design. I love the voice, and it just feels like this whole section, as great as it is, I just feel like it's a little bit misplaced. It's a side mission. It doesn't quite gel with the rest of it. It is clever and it's fun and it's cool, but then suddenly it's like now back to business, very serious, and it's like the rest of it just kind of drops off and we kind of forget about it. And there's just no connection to the rest of it, and I kind of would have liked a little bit of a tie-in maybe. And also, you know, maybe if Han Solo had died there or something, that would have helped certainly with the tension and carrying it over, but you know, whatever. A lot of the plot elements do bother me here. I really hate the whole plot twist of Princess Leia being Luke's sister. I've always hated it. I'm sorry. I just think it's really, really stupid. And the reveal of it is very stupid and just corny, and it's just poorly written. It's awkward, and yeah, it just feels like a cheap sort of device inserted after the big Vader reveal in Empire, which was so iconic. Everything here in this movie, maybe not everything, but a lot of the stuff here feels like a parody of the stuff that came before it. And I'm sorry to keep bringing up Empire Strikes Back, but when you have a film like that is leading, you know, into the next one in such a way, you know, they kind of go hand in hand, and it's just kind of jarring to me, the difference here. Also, Darth Vader, in the first two films, you know, he's this really incredible, you know, powerful visual presence and the epitome of what it means to be like domineering and like an intimidating antagonist. But in this one, I don't know, he feels like a little bitch. Palpatine doesn't even like hide it. He actually just says it. He announces that, you know, Vader is his bitch, and Vader's just like, okay, and he like bends over and takes it. And sure, I do think it's important to bring out the differences and the power dynamics between the Emperor and Vader. Absolutely, that's very important. But I don't know, this one just felt a little bit too forced, too easy, too lazy. And even with Vader facing Luke again, it's like, you've got to think about Empire Strikes Back. Think about where things left off. Think about the last time that these two characters saw each other and how intense that was, how traumatic that was. And for them to meet again, it should be a big deal, and it doesn't feel like that. Before, there was this sense of urgency. All these people are dying around you, and the fate of everything feels like it depends on you. And here, he's kind of pouting and being like, I don't want to fight you, Father. I think there's good in you. And it's like, this just feels very counterintuitive. And it's like, dude, come on. But then again, I think about the rebels at the same time, and it's like, they should be preparing for this big battle, but instead they're like sitting around telling campfire stories with the Ewoks, and it's like, how did we get here? The Forest Moons of Endor, it's just the redwoods, so I don't think it's that inspired creatively when it comes to like some interesting planet or whatever, but it does have one really fantastic sequence that I love, and it's the speeder bike chase. When I was a kid, I thought this was the shit. And it still has a great sense of movement. It's silly, it's fun, it's exhilarating. It feels absolutely Star Wars. And I got a real kick out of it, but I have to say, of all of the sequences in the film, that's the standout. That is the most interesting one. And I kind of hoped there would be something a little bit bigger. I hoped for like a great battle sequence, like the Battle of Yavin, or, like the battle on Hoth, the asteroid field sequence in Empire. It feels like we're just kind of jumping from battle sequence to battle sequence here without really orienting the audience in what's happening, I guess, because it's like, as an example, when we go to Endor for the first time, there's no sense of like all of the ships landing and everybody looking around and going, oh, wow, look at this planet. It's just like a wipe and suddenly everybody's there and it's like, oh, okay, I guess we landed. And even the same with the big space battle in the end. It's just kind of like, whoop, we're there. And it's like, okay, I guess we're fighting now. It does not build with the same excitement as like the Battle of Yavin. And I really feel like it's naturally supposed to be kind of a regurgitated version of it. It is still really enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy looking at it. And there's some fun moments, certainly. And it has the classic lines we love in Star Wars, and they're still exhilarating. It's just not feeling nearly as special to me. And in order for me to be on board with Star Wars, it's got to remain special. It has to keep that creativity and that boldness. Now, again, I know it seems like I am shitting all over this film. I just have a lot of complaints about it. I really do think it's a heavily flawed film. But as I said, there are elements I really do like about the film. And one of them, the thing I love the most, I think, about the entire film is the Emperor. It is Palpatine. I think he saved the entire second half of the film. He's just so fun. He is having a great time just hamming it up. And it's just a joy watching him. I have to say, in big movies like this, for some reason, it is just so hard for people to write a compelling villain. And I just feel like Palpatine makes it completely effortless. And it's like, why not? You got this one. This is Exhibit A. And he really could have brought the tension to a complete stop because, to be honest with you, there are a lot of scenes between him and Luke where he's talking and it feels like a real weird pause in the middle of a very important battle. But at the same time, I don't really care because he's just chewing the scenery in all his glory. And it's very deliberate, and his delivery of the lines are so iconic and so funny. He has me eating out of the palm of his hand. And it's like, where have you guys been hiding this guy? He is fantastic. He just found the perfect tone for it because, like I said, he's really laying on the camp factor and the theatrics, but he can also be quite menacing and mysterious in the ways that he needs to be. And I would have liked to see more of this. I would have liked to see more built, like in that triangle, the dynamics between Palpatine and Vader and Luke, and less stuff with the Ewoks. And from an emotional standpoint, though I wish it could have been handled or executed better, I do like, the way things end. I like the way that Palpatine dies, spoiler alert. And I like the closure that Vader has with Luke. I think that is actually very satisfying. The end to this does feel like a full closure. And that can be really nice. It's just, I wish they had ended it a lot less like Wayne's World, where they're all like staring at the camera being like, isn't it great? We're better people. But yeah, overall, when I look at the director of this film, yes, he's a softer man, I think. He has more of a sense of humor. He embraces the light and airy aspects of Star Wars. And that's great. It's just that, again, the sentiment is being laid on a little bit too thick for me. And maybe I do take Star Wars too seriously, but I just feel like the trilogy has already found that perfect balance, the dramatic and the emotional. And that's just where I find myself the most impressed, the most connected to. So yes, maybe to me, the series ends on a little bit of a whimper, but that is not to say there aren't interesting elements there. And it's not to say that it's a bad movie. It's just maybe not so much for me as an adult. I do think it is great for kids, though. As I said, I just loved this movie when I was a kid. I think it was my favorite when I was a kid. And I do think kids these days would absolutely love it. But the cynic in me is a little bit bitter, and knowing where everything's going to go later on, I do have a lot of things that I miss about A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. And I do think that it is The Empire Strikes Back that is the reason that Star Wars survived. I think that is the thing that is holding it together. And that's what I've noticed watching, rewatching this trilogy. But yeah, I don't know. Should I keep going? Should I go ahead and do the prequels and just close out all 9 of the movies? I don't know yet. I'm kind of still trying to decide. Let me know what you think. But that is the review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are wonderful. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.